Hello, I'm Dr. Caroline Barron from Durham University, and I'd like to present briefly on the inscriptions of Roman Tripolitania, and in particular, the new digital edition that we have just published. In 1952, Joyce Reynolds and J.B. Ward Perkins published the results of their survey of the inscriptions of Roman Tripolitania. This contained 972 texts, to which a further 23 inscriptions were added in a supplement published by the Papers of the British School at Rome in 1955. That edition, although remarkable for its time, pioneering for its time, contained little geographic information about the fine spots of the inscriptions and, crucially, very few illustrations, in spite of the many photographs that Joyce had taken. In 2009, a digital edition of the original 1952 publication was produced. Going digital meant that it was now possible for us to provide a full photographic record, together with the geographical data that linked inscriptions to maps and gazetteers, and so to other resources. Electronic publication made such a feat possible and permitted much greater functionality, such as free text searches. In order to produce the digital edition, the inscriptions were encoded using Epidoc, a set of guidelines that are a subset of the Text Encoding Initiative standard for the representation of texts in digital form. Epidoc is based on Leiden Conventions from 1931, and it was developed initially for the publication of digital editions of ancient inscriptions, such as the inscriptions of Aphrodisias and the Vindolanda tablets. The idea and the initial electronic version of IRT was produced by a team at the British School at Rome. But at the same time, the development of a new schema of Epidoc XML being developed by Tom Elliott made clear the potential for the greater functionality and sustainability of such a project. Eventually, the digital edition was produced by a team at the Centre for Computing and the Humanities at King's College London. It was principally funded by JISC, the Leverhulme Trust, and the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the result, a digital edition of the 1952 publication by J.M. Reynolds and J.B. Ward Perkins, was reissued in an enhanced electronic form by Gabriel Bedard and Charlotte Rouchet. In 2017, a new platform called EFES, the Epidoc Front-End Services platform, became available. EFES is a delivery, search and browse platform that can be set up and customized for individual Epidoc XML-based projects. It allows the editor to see the published version while they're working on it, which is a bit of a game changer. Unlike when we were editing IRT 2009, using the EFES platform means that we can share our work as we edit, and therefore solicit expertise from those who aren't necessarily literate in Epidoc, but who can advise on what the published edition of an inscription looks like or should look like. The development of EFES inspired a further step, and this was the idea to republish and enhance the inscriptions of Roman Tripolitania so that it could exist as a repository of all currently published Latin, Greek, and Neopunic inscriptions from Tripolitania. Many more inscriptions have been published since 1952, and their texts were already marked up in Epidoc for the most part. We were able to add further items from the Epigraphische Datenbank Heidelberg and the Bougem Ostraca from papyri.info, which had also been produced with Epidoc markup. Then, using EFES, we were able to share the pilot site with other colleagues who were more expert than us and invite their contributions and suggestions. The inscribed and painted texts presented here have all previously been published by a range of expert scholars. They have been assembled and curated by Charlotte Rouchet, and their publication in this format has been enabled by her colleagues Gabriel Bedard in London and Irene Vagianakis in Bologna. We've received contributions, guidance and support from many other colleagues as well. And to see the whole team behind the inscriptions of Roman Tripolitania, you just need to click on the tab here, which will describe who was working on what. The result is a much larger corpus of inscriptions, including the Greek and Latin texts published since 1952. The corpus now numbers nearly 1,700 inscriptions, although we expect that there are more recently published texts that we have missed and which we will include in future digital editions. The new site, IRT 2021, has vastly improved search functionality, largely due to a very rich system of indexing that allows users to search by means of any of the following categories: by abbreviations in inscriptions, to do with age, the names of divine and sacred beings, members of the imperial family, erasures, find spots, fragments of text, organizations, people, personal names, place names, symbols, and a very long index of individual words. Each inscription is presented like this. First of all, full metadata describing the object on which it was found, the date, the find spot, and present location. The edition is then presented with a tab that also gives the diplomatic version of the text. Beneath this is an English translation and bibliography. We spent some time considering what was appropriate for inclusion in the bibliography here and decided to focus only on publications that offered readings or modifications of the text. We've avoided listing items that discuss the text, suggesting those that are especially relevant in a section called commentary. The images digitized by the British School at Rome are also provided here, along with a fully downloadable page of the Epidoc XML markup. We've also improved the search functionality with further subdivisions within the different search categories, as you can see here. Different facets can be broken down into geographic levels, into material to do with the object on which the inscription was found, the source repository, the text type, and also by language. One major addition to the corpus was the decision to include the Neopunic texts of the multilingual inscriptions from Tripolitania. You can see here an inscription from the theatre, IRT 321, which is a bilingual Latin and Neopunic text, the last two lines of which inscribed in Neopunic following the Latin. The previous editions of IRT had excluded the Neopunic from these multilingual texts, in large part because there is no Unicode script for Neopunic, the spoken and written dialect of Punic that arose in Libya after the fall of Carthage in 146 BCE. It's a phonetic script of 22 phonemes without any vowel letters. Now, in spite of there still being no way to represent the script in Unicode, we were able to use published transliterations of the Neopunic. One challenge was that there don't yet appear to be conventions for Phoenicio-Punic epigraphy that are quite comparable with the Leiden conventions. So we had to think quite carefully about how to represent the text meaningfully. Latinized transliterations are common amongst Punic epigraphers, and there's less focus on attempting to represent visually the direction of the script. Neopunic is read from right to left, but it's actually not usually published in transliterated publications. In this example from IRT 2021, text part 2 is the transliterated or into a Latinized alphabet line of Neopunic text. Some Leiden conventions have, however, proven to be unsuitable, such as the underdots that in Latin and Greek epigraphy we use to indicate unclear letters. In Neopunic, underdots can be integral to several of the phonetic letters. So this required collaboration with other platforms in which Punic is present, such as iSicily, in order to agree on conventions that could represent such conflicts that would be uniform then across our corpora and our platforms. We anticipate further editions of Inscriptions of Roman Tripolitania and welcome collaboration from users and researchers working on Libyan epigraphy so that we can continue to build on improving our existing work.